why. Or what? This is a Watts link. It was originally patented in the 1700s by a guy named James Watts, and it was originally a reciprocating device for steam engines, for like horizontally opposed pistons or something. It's been used in muscle cars quite a bit, and even in some off-road vehicles like the Land Rover Discovery, and some real performance machines like the PT Cruiser. The Crown Vic has one, and the Ranger Raptor that's coming out this year has one. It's not new technology, and I didn't invent it. It's literally older than America. The question is, why? This build has evolved significantly over time. Originally, it was just going to be a 3-link in the front, which on a Nissan Frontier, people don't really do that, so I didn't know what issues we'd run into. There were a ton of problems. The oil filter location is in the way, the engine mounts are a little too low, the cab is significantly taller than a Tacoma, which is great for interior space, but it ends up looking very tall when it's built. Every single part on this truck is a custom designed piece.
Let's talk about some of the CAD models I had to make this build actually happen, because you can't buy anything for a Nissan Frontier. These are the upper and lower link mounts. It was pretty simple to do. These are the upper link mounts for the rear. Look at how stupid this shape is. It's literally like, it's got so many bends, it's offset on the tube, it's annoying. I didn't even make this part line up right. Look, it doesn't even touch. I just hammered it and made it work before I welded it. Here's the actual Watts link mount. At the last second, I decided to make it an inch lower, but I was too lazy to actually update this entire thing. So only one side is an inch lower, and I didn't make the brace go down further, but no one noticed that until just now. This is the upper trailing arm. This actually ended up being pretty good. I have no idea why this file deleted the brace inside of here, but this thing came together nice. It was just maybe about 50 hours more welding than I thought it would be. Here's a mock-up for an Atlas transfer case that I made and cut out and have. And this was because the transfer case was originally supposed to be divorced, and I needed something that was lighter than a normal transfer case to put it in, and then that way, you know, you can measure for drive shafts, all that kind of stuff. And then we ended up not even using it, so that was really cool. And then here is my first ever 3D part, panhard bracket for it. Man, it's crazy to see how far I've come since just something like this was would take me a couple hours, honestly. Here's another cool thing that I learned, is that you can actually take a photo with someone holding up a ruler in it, and then you can size this photo off the ruler, and then you can design a part in CAD based off it. And the angles don't come out quite right because of like optical illusion, all this other kind of stuff, but it comes out pretty good, dude. This thing was super close. I only had to move it around maybe like 1/4 inch or so. And then now here's one of my latest projects, our recovery build. It's insane to see how far everything's gone. So back to the actual video.
It's little stuff like that that you can just buy parts for if you're building a normal vehicle. When this build first started, the customer just wanted a 3-link, and then he decided, hey, we should do a cool flatbed on it. My stock bed is pretty jacked up. And at that point, the truck was going to be spring under leaf springs in the rear, which is a great setup for smashing through the desert. And so I built the flatbed perfectly to the right width for spring under leaf springs on an axle, because there's very little side-to-side shift on them. At one point, he decided he wanted an exo cage. I was like, well, I didn't really build the bed for an exo cage, but I will make it work. And that's why I ended up with all these swoopy tubes, which I normally hate to do. The more bends that you have in the cage, the more likely it is to bend. My ideal cage would just look like a brick pretty much with a bunch of triangles in it. It's just not very aesthetically pleasing though. That's the problem with it, but it is strong. One of the things we realized with how tall the front is going to be is that the spring under leaf springs, we're going to need like 24-inch long shackles to match the ride height when the bed is weighed down with load. It was eventually decided we should just link it. The Nissan ECU isn't really happy without the stock gas tank hooked up, although this is the same motor that they put in a 350Z, which is why it sounds literally awful, like high schoolers at a drift event. And so because of that, I couldn't relocate the gas tank. Normally I would just do triangulated uppers. I like semi-parallel lowers, tends to handle just killer through the desert, keeps you like so stable, and then super triangulated uppers, and you're good to go, man. That's how our truck is built. That's how I built a bunch of trucks. But this thing, I realized with the way I built the bed, and then with the gas tank there, there's no room to package triangulated uppers on the link, which was a huge bummer. So I had to go back to the drawing board, and what I came up with was a parallel 4-link with a panhard bar. And in order to make the parallel 4-link work, I had to build these crazy upper link mounts, which are also offset and angled so that the parking brake lever of the droder assembly on the 14-bolt will still work. And after I built those and I built the lowers, the geometry was pretty good. The biggest issue with this thing is that as the panhard wood swings side to side, no matter what position you put it in, one tire is going to hit the frame or the other. In my mind, I was thinking so hard about a way to keep the axle centered without triangulating the links and without it swaying side to side a couple inches. And eventually, I just kind of came up with the horizontal Watts link. It's something I've been thinking about for a couple of years and wanted to use on a couple different cars. And it's a very proven design. Just not a lot of people do it in this orientation, and that's because it can bind the Heim joints, but luckily with newer technology, we have extremely high angle Heim joints, which work great. And as far as I can tell, the Watts link sees very little load. The parallel 4-link is just very slightly triangulated, and the uppers, of course, have anti-wobbles in them. They have those nice TMR anti-wobbles with the Delrin that's cut at an angle so it contacts it flatly. So the Heim joints can do 32 degrees of misalignment, which is absolutely insane, and they're rated for like 55 to 60,000 pounds. They're really high quality. That was like the least of my concerns about them breaking. I was a little concerned about the pivot, but the pivot is a dual roller bearing style trailer spindle, which they're rated at like 6,000 RPMs or something. And so if you drop it down to like 10 to 20 RPMs, it multiplies the amount of load that those bearings can handle pretty significantly. It's not like a straight one-to-one, but it's fairly significant. The entire Watts link rotating assembly was built around a minimum 3-to-1 safety factor for an anticipated load of like 10,000 pounds or so. And that number is based on reaching out to a very popular trophy truck builder and asking him what load he anticipates to see on a vehicle with a panhard. Hopefully that's a little overkill because again, this truck weighs 5,000 pounds. So the Watts link should be able to handle like 30,000 pounds. You're gonna have a lot of other issues if that happens. Another benefit of having the uppers slightly triangulated out so far is that it allowed the Watts link to sit down so that the link arms are actually perfectly level at 50-50 of its travel. So this thing without limit straps, it'll do 27 inches of travel, which is honestly insane, and it's not something I planned for. My hope was with the 14-inch coilovers that we'd be able to do about 20. I was hoping to have like a 1.5 to 1 ratio or something like that, and it ended up being almost a 2 to 1 ratio. I'm not really sure where my math went wrong. I did all this in the computer, and I feel like I just put a wrong number in somewhere. If you pull the limit straps off and the shocks off, at about 28 to 29 inches of travel, the Watts link will begin to bind. With the shocks on, it only does 26 or so, and then with the limit straps, they're 24-inch straps, so we're limiting 2 inches of travel to account for a strap stretch. And that brings it to maybe 24 inches, which is slightly more reasonable. I still would have liked to keep it around 20 so we could crank up the spring rate a bit. And honestly, there is such a thing as too much articulation for sure. I don't know what else to talk about.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We really appreciate it. Hey, I just want to take a second and say the original Watts link video I posted got over 18 million views, which is insane. It makes my hands sweaty. I really appreciate all the interest in this project. And if you're one of the haters that said this wouldn't work and then disappeared after I posted the CAD models, that's what I thought. So anyways, like and subscribe. We got a bunch of new videos coming out, man. I just want to thank everyone for their help on this project.
How long's it been, Curtis?
7 seconds.
Maybe 7. I give you 5.
Oh, man. All right. Oh, we're figuring it out.